guys, greetings from Bulgaria. I am Anton, and in today's video we're going to talk about single sign-on and automating it with Selenium Java. For this video I prepared my special juice for the mornings. It contains a lot of lemon juice, guava, ginseng, lots of ginger, lots of ginger, and this is my little secret for the morning together with one strong coffee to keep me going. So cheers, and let's get started. So in today's video, first I'm going to give you a little bit of theory how single sign-on works. We need to understand it, why we need it, etc. Of course, I prepared a demo application that I'm going to share with you in the links below. It's in a special GitHub repo because we're going to use it for other videos as well. Of course, in the links below you will find all the source codes and different useful articles. Then we're going to discuss the various techniques for testing single sign-on and how to automate it, of course. And we'll focus on all of the best practices and tips and tricks that you need to know. Of course, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. Hit the ring bell so that you get notified when new videos are published on the Lambda Test channel. Each week, many new awesome videos are published. Of course, you can check also the Lambda Test blog, where there you can find many detailed articles to help you be a much better test automation engineer. So, without further ado, let's get started. Before looking into the actual diagram of how different protocols of the single sign-on works, let's discuss actually and see an example. This is a popular music platform called Spotify, and this platform using this single sign-on for using these providers. So what is the single sign-on? Single sign-on allows you to log in once and then access multiple systems without needing to log in again. This means that when you log into Google, then you can, without any passwords, etc., you can log into Spotify, Deezer, Lambda Test, and other services. So how this works? You have a main place called identity provider. These are the different identity providers here, Google, Facebook, Apple, where you log in. And of course, by the way, there are also single sign-ons you might have for your own company. So after you log in, you can use these different services like we already discussed without entering your password again. And then we have different single sign-on methods and different algorithms that are used in protocols. And maybe the most popular is the diagram that you saw. We can discuss it in short. This is OAuth2. This is a common method where you give permissions to one app, like the music app, to use information from another, like Google. For example, we can access the email, the phone number, your display name, names, etc. And when you click login with Google, that's OAuth2 in action. So what happens? First, the user tries to log in your app using these services, Google or Facebook. Then we are redirected to, for example, to Google, like here depicted in the image. There might be some consent screens where you agree for particular permissions to access your personal information if you haven't approved it yet. After that, there are these authorization codes where they're exchanged between your app and the service provider. And after that, behind the scenes, the app trades this code for access token. And using the token, the app fetches the user's information from the service, then the app uses this information to log in the user. In this token management, these access tokens, they expire over time, but can be refreshed without relogin. And in summary, this OAuth2 is really helpful with all of these fortin bags to log you in. So let's discuss in short the demo application that I'm going to demonstrate. So I used here Node.js to create, it's really one file. As I said, this demo app, we'll use it in other videos as well. But I used Node.js to create this app here. It has many different ways to log in. For example, if I zoom in, we can log in with the default provider. We can, in the next video, we're going to discuss how to passwordless login with emails or SMS where we receive one-time passcodes. This is a really popular method right now. Then we have this single sign-on with Google and Facebook. We can register, we can activate, etc., etc. So when we use the single sign-on here, this is the service provider. As you can see, we are redirected to Google because right now I haven't logged in. This is incognito mode. I created a dummy Gmail account to show you how this works. So once we enter the email, we are asked for the password. And then when I provide the password, as you can see, there is one more redirection. And right now I'm John Smith. So I walked into my application. As I said, it's much more complex because later we can use two-factor authentication on the next logins where we need to have this application on your phone. Also, we have buttons here to revoke the access so that we check every time this consent screens, and I can log out, or I can also update my profile, right? So I can log out. So this is the demo app in short. So let's discuss some other important points about single sign-on. When you test it, you need to make sure that the data is safe and encrypted during this, fortin back HTTP requests. That it's encrypted. It's using HTTPS. This is a demo website. This is why here, the certificate is not valid. But yeah, then you need to check that the correct and relevant details like email are exchanged, that later in the profile we see the right one. As you can see, the next time when I log in, no more I need to provide the login, the email and the password, right? I'm logging immediately. So the tests need to, basically we need to play this scenario with the right data and with invalid login details to see what will happen. And after the login, users should be able to access what they're allowed to. There shouldn't be any broken links, errors, etc. Because otherwise, for example, if you refused the consent screen about particular information, something bad may happen, so you need to check that. Also, after that, when we log out, we need to check that even from Gmail, we will be log out not only from this website but from Google as well. Right now, this is not working really properly, so this is a bug. And one more thing, many websites, like for example Spotify or Lambda Test, when you go to Lambda Test, Lambda Test provides different applications under the same, it's like a single page application, but with different URLs. And basically, when you log in with the single sign-on, multiple requests are exchanged between different applications, and you will be logged in all of them. So many companies are using single sign-on to log you, everywhere. For example, Amazon is doing this as well. They have different applications for the shopping cart, for the forums, for the support, etc. But you will be logged in all of these places. So you need to check that the single sign-on is working. This should be one of our cases, right? However, imagine the case with Lambda Test where, for example, if we search for Lambda Test capabilities generator. Here, when you go to the dashboard and with different applications, there is you might not access all of them because these are different products. You need to purchase them separately, which means that initially during the trial, probably the single sign-on will walk you in all of them. But once you purchase particular subset of them, this means the single sign-on later should be combined together with the licensing of your account. And you need to check that because these are additional cases. These are additional, permissions. Also, once we, in many cases, when we logged in the first time with Google, we fetch just part of the information. Like, for example, the display name and name. Sometimes, as we'll discuss later, you won't be able to fetch emails or phone numbers depending on where you are. And this means that later, for example, most probably in most cases, you won't be able to fetch the phone number. This means that you need to have additional screens in your app to ask the user as part of the flow to enter this necessary information. Like 10 years ago, while I was working in one enterprise project, I had to automate and test single sign-on for this big company. And we needed not only the phone number, but the country and the company of the users. And many often we couldn't fetch them. So we needed to detect which information is missing and then ask the user on the next login to enter the information. Otherwise, the application won't work correctly and all of the flows. So yeah, basically we use single sign-on because it's faster and easier login. This means more people will use our website or app, but you need to make sure that the single sign-on works perfectly. And this is tricky because many often when we go to these websites here, these fields might change, their IDs might change, the login button might be different, etc. So you need to be careful and you need to plan that. And a lot of testing need to be done manually, but lucky for us, most of the stuff can be automated, and I will show you how to do that. For example, one more case that you need to consider is, for example, when we're logged in here, but we need to change our email in Facebook or Google. This might done, especially in Facebook. You might change your email. I have done this in the past. Basically, your app needs to be aware and map and need to continue to work. This means that the mapping probably shouldn't be done against the email itself, or this might be broken the next time. Basically you need to take care of all of the error handling. If there is an error, user should see the helpful message there. Let me demonstrate. For example, right now, I will explain later what's happening, but basically my Facebook login was working for example, 1 week ago when I was working on the demo app, but now it's not working. And let me show you. For example, when we log in, and now I will be redirected to my application. But oops, app is not active. And I will explain later what are these apps and how you can access them. But when I click OK, my app is not handling very well, here all of the errors. And this is really bad and may happen during different type of situations where your app is not handling well and the needed information is not provided. So, for example, authorization code service redirects the users back to the application with the authorization code. And this authorization code might not be valid, so you need to handle that. So, what else? As you saw, initially here there was a consent screen. So let's return to the presentation and I will show it. So there are other situations that you might consider. For example, here on this screen there are a couple of scenarios. For example, the first time when we are in a private session we haven't worked with other users. But it might be the case that you may have multiple accounts, and then the workflow is different. Then you need to pick one of them before we are redirected directly, right? So this is one thing. Another here is the first time when you are in incognito, you will see this screen and you need to allow the cookies, otherwise you cannot log in. Also, when we log in here, as in our demo application, we want probably to register this account in our user's database and allow the user to be logged in, in our website through the normal login, not just with Facebook, etc. Because not many often, but sometimes there might be cases. This happened a few times last year. All of the service providers were down, for example, Google and Facebook. And then if this is the only way how the users can be logged in, this is really terrible. For example, for a day or two, you may lose a lot of money if the users cannot use the app, right? They can sue you in the court. This is really terrible. So usually in most of the times, most of the application are registering additional account in the system and linking it. However, there might be the case where, for example, previously in my demo application here, if I return, maybe I used the register form and I already registered with this email that I'm using for the single sign-on. This means that the time when we are redirected, instead of creating the account, we need to link it to this particular account again. Another thing to consider, for example, Spotify or Lambda Test, or this company that I mentioned that I worked in the past. If the URL, the domain here is different for the application that you want to be logged in, if it's different, you need to be careful and you need to check really whether this happened or not, because there might be cross-origin exceptions during the requests. And this is something that you need to check whether it works or not. When we need to configure how this works, you need to have accounts in Google Cloud and in Meta developers' websites. There, you need to subscribe to the proper APIs and services. Here, I created one for testing the single sign-on. This is like a demo application. And usually you need to get the proper application ID, the client secret, and the proper token. This way the application can communicate with the service provider. Also, we need to configure here the URLs and these redirections. You saw in the previous diagram that there are many requests going on. As you can see here, we can configure later the OAuth consent screens. Also, there are really detailed documentations about each of these test apps. But basically, when you create such an app, you can most of the time create a testing app and you can publish it so that you can change some of the settings and not doing it directly. Because, as you know, there might be different releases over time with updates, and you won't be sure that you can check what's going on. Also, in most of the service providers, you can create test users, like here in Google. With Meta for developers, Meta, as you know, is the parent company of Facebook. Meta holds also Instagram, WhatsApp, and other apps. Here I created also one single sign-on demo test app to configure the demo app that we are going to use. So here we have the app ID and the app secret that you need for the JavaScript to communicate with the service provider. Also, something that you need to be aware, Once we have the app, it has app mode. Usually when we start, it's in a development mode. And then we can have all these test users, test apps, etc. And once you publish it, it's a long procedure that you need to verify that you're the right owner, etc. But once you have that, you can publish it live once it's reviewed by Meta. And then we have these app rows and test users. Unfortunately, actually, they are temporarily removing. Once I was working on the demo, it turned out that this functionality with the test users is not working right now. So for the last month or two, it's not working. Maybe in future they will allow this again, but it's really helpful because instead of creating real accounts and verifying it with phone numbers, etc., it's really great to have these test accounts, and you can play all of the scenarios with updating the MLs, etc. Also, for both Google and especially for Facebook, there is this advanced app in the application where you can configure a lot of stuff. For example, you can configure here GDPR restricted area for certain countries. This way, when I put GDPR restricted, this means that I cannot fetch, for example, the emails and the phone, because this is private information for people living in Europe. And we need to consent to different consent screens. Also, we can restrict certain countries. And this might be challenging. This means that in certain countries, this single sign-on won't work, where Facebook, for example, is blocked. We can also block some IPs, and you need to check whether this works or not with your application and how it will handle all of the screens afterwards. So, as I said, when we use the, this is like a picture of the console of the demo app, and here is displayed part of the information. As you can see, nowhere you can see the actual email, right? And this is because actually Facebook, based on these rules that you saw in the settings of your test app that it's used for the service provider, may not return every time the email. This is really terrible. This is why actually you saw this error. And this is why partially my workflow there is actually not working. How this works, let me show you. This demo app, it's using Bootstrap and, as I said, Express with Node.js for fetching the UI. All of the secrets later, you need to set them here in .environment. They will be fetched from there. And it's basically a portable app. You don't need other servers, you just need a Node.js. And after that, I created in-memory database for the users that are registered. And we have some default users for regular login so that you can log in and see how it works. Also, when we close the application, we save this user's small database in a JSON file on the file system, and on the next startup, we'll load the JSON users and you will be able to log in again. And in the app, actually, if we are here, you can reset the database and basically we'll delete this file from the system. And for the Facebook stuff, we are using a passport library, Node.js library, and it's handling all of the stuff about Google. You just need to provide basically the client ID and the client secret and the callback URL that we register in the Google Test app. After that, we do almost the same for Facebook, but as I said, we need to mention here which profile fields we want. In this case, we want the ID, the display name, and the emails. But as you saw, even when we require the emails, they are not returned because of this protection. And once the callback is here and we call the server, this function, JavaScript function, is called, and we get the email from the request returned from the service provider. We have our own way to register the user in our own database. So we are doing that. Here, in the case of Facebook, actually, this is the part that it's not working because actually we don't have the email and we cannot register the user. That's the problem. And then we have all of these cookies. Based on them, we are generating a hash based on the username, password, and the ID. And once we have these two cookies, we are redirected to the profile. And this means that if we have the cookie, we can, for example, here, if I use the login, you will see that right now I have this authentication cookie. And by the way, in the Node.js app, I have two helper web API methods. For example, one of them can register a user, test user, and this way I can test my app. And the second one is when I provide the username and other information, I can generate the token. And this means that I can create these cookies and be logged in automatically. But this is something for another video. So let's see how we can automate that. So we have this demo app, right? So first we need to click on this single sign-on tab. We can do that by directly searching for the ID. So in the links below, you will find the link to the GitHub repo. I created a standard Selenium project using Maven. Basically, I installed JUnit. If you're not familiar with JUnit, there is one of the videos on the YouTube channel that you'll find in the resources below in the description. But for 4 hours, you will learn everything about JUnit, how to set up it, how to use it. So yeah, I use JUnit here. So I installed all Maven dependencies in the POM XML. I also installed WebDriver. You will notice that I use one of the latest versions for 4.11. If you're up to speed, there is a really great article on the Lambda test blog about it. But with this version forward, you no more need the WebDriver manager, because behind the scenes here, Selenium will start using here the Selenium manager, which will automatically detect the version of your browser, and it will download automatically for you the driver and cache it. Anyhow, it's still in beta at the moment when I'm recording, so this is why I will still use the WebDriver manager. As you know, this is a popular third-party library for downloading the proper driver for us, and this Selenium version is backward compatible, so it will work for it. I suggest I installed also the Selenium, 𝑨𝒏𝒕𝒐𝒏 𝑨𝒏𝒈𝐿 WebDriver manager. That's all we need. Then I created a simple class called single sign-on tests. I have an instance to the WebDriver. Before all of the tests, we'll download the proper driver and we'll initialize the email, the password for the Facebook and Google test accounts. I store them in environmental variables. In Java, we can get them with system.getEnv method. Of course, you need to create the environmental variables and add them in your system. It depends which operating system you use. In Windows, it's easy. So, before each method, I'm starting the Chrome driver, I'm maximizing it, and then after each test, we are closing it. I created two simple test methods here. One of them is called login successfully using Google single sign-on, not already logged in Google account. Basically, every time we will simulate how we type the email and the password. So first we navigate to our demo app. Then I'm going to find this single sign-on tab and I'm going to click it. After that, it should be easy, like so. We are clicking here and we need to find this particular button. As you can see, it's actually a link, but it doesn't have, if I zoom in, you will see it doesn't have any ID. So we can type an XPath, an anchor, where text is equal to login with Google. So we need to click I'm copying it, and then we'll continue. So how I find it? Here it is. Login button on anchor, it doesn't matter. So I'm using this XPath that we wrote, find element XPath, then we click in it. After that, we'll be redirected. Right now, actually, we will be logged in, so we'll need to log out. So I'm right now in my account, so I will, we want to sign out. When we sign out, also, I will check that we want to remove it. And then let's see what will happen. When I click again, single sign-on, login with Facebook, first we'll have this email field. So we need to inspect it. And here, maybe we can find it by this ID. This will be the best way. Or we can find it by area label. It will be up to you. We can do it both. So let's find it by this identifier. So here we'll have email input equal to driver, find element by ID, and then we'll have email input, send keys, and then we need to type, in this case, Google test email. Then most probably, let's see what's next. We need to click the next button. So let's type first our email, and let's see how we can locate the next button. The next button, actually, it's a span that contains just next. It doesn't have an ID. So maybe we can type span, and then we can get text equal next. And then this is how we can find it. So I'm going to click it. I'm going to type the password. As you can see here, we have an autocomplete. I'm not seeing any ID. So maybe we can find it by this particular text here. Enter your password, area label. So to find it by area label, we need to type input add. This is how we select different attributes. Area label equal enter your password, and then we're going to click again next. I think the same locator will work. After that, we are redirected, and here I can verify that using this ID, user ID, span ID, it's equal to this particular name, and we can click afterwards the logout. And we need to check that we're logged out. So let's find the next button. As we discussed, we are going to use this span XPath here, and then we're going to click the next button. Then we'll use the area label by text, and I'm going to type the password that we get from the environmental variable. After that, we're going to click the next button again, but we need to find it again because it's on a different page. If you're just type this next button without fetching it again, probably this will fail because basically the button has different coordinates, it's different DOM, it's a different page. So we need to next find the username. I find it by username. This is the span. And next we need to type assertions. This is again, you can check the video about JUnit, but this is a special class in JUnit where we have this assert equals method where I need to type the proper name, in this case John Smith, and then username at getText, and after that we can log out every time. In this case, I find it just by the text logout, and this will automatically work for me. I did the same test for Facebook. It's almost identical, so I won't type it, but I will explain it in short. Basically, again, I navigated to my app, then I click the single sign-on tab, then instead of this time I said login with Google, but this time we allow the cookies, so I click the button with the cookies that you saw on the slide. Here it's a little bit simple. We have the email, the pass, and the login button, and then the rest of the test is the same. Maybe we can check the providers as well. As I said, this is just 2 of the scenarios. However, we discussed there are many different scenarios that you want to check whether they are working or not. I showed you how actually this didn't work for the Facebook, right? When we were in test app, and this actually happened because when we're here in app mode, I can test it only with the user that I created or with one of the test users. But since I created a different test account, that it's not my original Facebook account, it said that basically you cannot, if you're not live, you cannot log in with other accounts that you register. And this is really a problem, right? So yeah, single sign-on, it's really important. And I hope that you now have a better concept how you can test it. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, put them in the comments below. Check the Lambda test blog, and for many awesome articles. Don't forget to get your free certification about JUnit and Selenium. And thank you for watching, and see you in the next videos. Bye.